Hi, welcome back to Diver Cat and Ocean Pancake. My name is Kat and welcome to our new series all about climate change. Now, I've been thinking a lot about how I'd like to move forward with my channel. As you know, I've taken a little bit of a break from content and there's so much that I would still like to do. As you guys know, I'm a scuba diving instructor, I'm a scientist, and I'm an educator. I also love creating content for you guys, so I thought why not to mesh all of it together and create a sciencey based education through the lens of our oceans and scuba diving to share knowledge about our beautiful, beautiful planet and ways you can get into the water and help the water and do all things ocean. What do you guys think? Good? Yeah? No? Let me know down below. I've also been spending a lot more time creating TikToks. Yeah, I don't know who I am either, so head on over there if you'd like to see. But I promise I'm actually going to be making most of them shorts here and actually making more shorts on the YouTube channel. So if you do see my YouTube shorts, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, all of that, because I would love to try and figure out that algorithm. I don't know what's happening on the internet nowadays, but what I do know is our world needs help. We are getting closer and closer to climate change catastrophe with every day. I know, Miss Positivity over here. So let's get into it. In the 5 ways our oceans are getting impacted by climate change in Australia. Number 1 impact of climate change on our oceans is something I'm sure you've heard a lot about before, and that is rising sea levels. Climate change is causing global sea levels to rise, and this is expected to have significant impacts on Australia's coastal regions. As you know, most of us in Australia live on the coasts, and therefore we are going to be seeing first-hand impacts of these ocean levels rising. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, has predicted that the sea levels could rise by as much as 1.1 meters by the end of the century. So that is by 2100. And that is if we do not take drastic action to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. I'm sure you guys know what greenhouse gas emissions are, right? Carbon dioxide from cars, from all the things. Yeah, got it? Okay, let's keep going. The rising sea levels will have severe consequences for all the low-lying coastal areas in Australia and around the world. The risk of flooding will also increase as storm surges become more severe. The rise in sea levels is also lead destruction of habitat in coral reefs, in coastal mangroves, salt marshes, and all the key ecosystems of all of our marine species around Australia. The loss of these environments will cause a decline in biodiversity, and there is going to be a loss of important nursery areas for many fish and other marine species. Now, as a caveat, one of the key ways to protect our coastlines from storm surges and rising sea levels is making sure our ecosystems off our coast, like our coral reefs, remain healthy and thriving. Because coral reefs are a natural defense against storm surges, cyclone surges, and anything like that. While you may be familiar with man-made protection devices, including sandbags and merino walls made out of rocks, coral reefs are the natural answer. This is why there's no surf anywhere north of Ailey Beach. That's because the Great Barrier Reef is stopping all the waves from hitting the coasts. The second impact on our ocean is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is a direct result of carbon dioxide emissions, CO2, being reabsorbed into our oceans. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but our oceans are actually the lungs of the Earth. They absorb more carbon dioxide and emit more oxygen than the Amazon or than any land-based forest. With the additional absorption of carbon dioxide that we put out into the atmosphere, there is a decrease in the pH of our seawater, salt water, our oceans. This makes the water more acidic. This has an impact on marine organisms, especially those that rely on calcium carbonate to build their shells and skeletons. What's that? Our coral reefs, of course. The Great Barrier Reef is particularly vulnerable to ocean acidification as it is the home to a large number of species that rely on this calcium carbonate to survive. If the pH of the water drops too low, the reef would start to dissolve, which would be the collapse of an entire ecosystem. Now that we have started talking about coral reefs, let's talk about coral bleaching. Now, this is something all of us are familiar with and we have all seen on TV over and over again. Coral bleaching is happening more frequently than ever before in the summer months. But isn't coral bleaching normal? Yes, during extreme heat events like marine heat waves, coral bleaching is a natural process that corals go through to try and protect themselves. What happens in coral bleaching is when symbiotic algae that live within the coral tissue are expelled due to the stress of the extreme heat in the water, and they leave behind the coral white and vulnerable. The coral is vulnerable to disease at this time, and if the heat doesn't subside relatively fast, allowing the algae to come back into the coral structure, it remains permanently bleached, meaning permanently dead. Coral reefs are the foundation of many ecosystems in our ocean. Reef fish, crustaceans, algae, invertebrates, vertebrates, pelagics all depend on coral reefs as the foundation of their home. If the coral is gone, if it's bleached, if it's dead, then we are losing the building blocks of these enormous ecosystems. The Great Barrier Reef has experienced several severe coral bleaching events in recent years. The most devastating one happened in 2016 and in 2017. You guys may remember this. Up to 50% of the coral on the reef was affected, and it's estimated that it will take decades for the reef to recover. Now, 50% of the coral reef being affected does not mean that 50% of the reef is dead. It means at some point or another, some of it was bleached. The parts that recovered and the parts that didn't depended a lot on the location within the Great Barrier Reef, the other stressors that were impacting it, like ocean acidification, and in general, just the combination of a multitude of events. But heat waves, marine heat waves, ocean temperature rising is one of the key impacts of climate change, of global warming. It's temperatures going up more than they should. Now, what does it actually mean when temperatures are going up? This means climate change is causing more frequent and severe weather events. This includes cyclones, storms, heavy rainfall, and extreme heat waves, both land heat waves and marine heat waves. These events can have a significant impact on Australia's coastal regions, including flooding, erosion, damage to infrastructure, damage to coral reefs, causing heat wave, which then causes coral bleaching, which then leads to mass species die-off, super fun stuff like that. One example is Cyclone Debbie, and if you've been watching any of my shorts, you would see a lot of evidence of Cyclone Debbie. Cyclone Debbie hit in 2017, and its impacts were significant on the reef. They hit just here near Airlie Beach where I live, so I can still see the areas where the cyclone would physically destroy the coral, where the coral reefs were ripped out from their original spots in the ground and they were strewn all over, causing death by, physical destruction. But also the cyclone caused a lot of other destruction. There were heat waves which associated during that time of the year, causing coral bleaching. It was just a whole mess. So quite often, if you look at any of my footage and you see some damage, that would be from Cyclone Debbie. These extreme weather events, the fact that they're happening more often, means that our reefs just simply do not have enough time to recover back to their original state. Back in the day, we would expect a cyclone of that severity maybe every 20 years or so. Here's a fun little infographic about what they used to be like in frequency and what we're expecting them to be. So the shorter interval between cyclones mean there is just simply less time for our natural environments to return back to their healthy states before they're getting impacted again by all these extreme physical and temperature issues. The last ocean impact I'm going to talk about today is the change in ocean currents. Now, this is a little bit of a funny one that's not brought up quite as often. Climate change is causing changes to ocean currents, and this can have significant impacts on all marine ecosystems. For example, changing in ocean currents can impact the distribution of nutrients and other important resources. This will have a cascading effect on the entire food chain in the marine world, from plankton to larger fish to mammals and the megafauna, of course. One example of this is the East Australian Current. This is the warm ocean current that flows southward along the east coast of Australia. We've all heard about this from Finding Nemo. Yep, so that current. If the strength or direction of this current changes, it would have a significant impact on the health of the reef and the many species that rely on it. but the way that currents flow depends on the density of the various oceans that they're flowing from and to, and the density is impacted by the temperature of these areas. If the whole temperatures of the ocean changes or increases, we will actually experience a smaller difference in temperatures between the north of Australia and the south of Australia. This means the current that would have been sucked towards the colder water down south is now going to flow at a slower rate than previous. Changing ocean currents will also change the distribution of marine animals all around the coast, around the world. We can't even imagine the impacts it will have on the food chains. Climate change is having significant impacts on our coastal ecosystems, on our oceans already today. I mean, we are seeing species further south than they ever have before. We are seeing various mating seasons extend or contract. There's just a lot of change happening. And what are the impacts going to be long term? I don't know, but potentially the reefs may expand further south, but then the north ones will be bleached to oblivion. Some areas of the ocean will be unlivable, uninhabitable for many species. The ones that can survive through adaptation will. Those who can't adapt will die. So we are experiencing the next great extinction. That's why I want you guys to join me on this journey to stop the amount of greenhouse gas emissions we're emitting and start on the individual level. I know we as one person can't do everything, but if we try, we can kind of pass it on to the people around us, because people do look at what you're doing. And you know, if you're doing something good for our planet, the chances are someone will notice and start doing that too. But of course, one of the most important things that you can do is vote. I cannot vote in Australia yet, but one day soon. And in that case, it's important to vote not only in the federal elections, but in your local councils, in your states, in your areas, to make sure that the people who are getting into power care about our oceans and the climate change and what we are going to be doing about climate change as people. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out my shorts if you liked anything there, and jump on board to join the mission into a bubblier, beautiful future in our oceans. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.